The non-traditional route is I'm just going to build a company around an AI related idea. And then
Mhm.
I'm going to go to a startup accelerator through like Oracle, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, all these different organizations. Then they'll give you the most cutting edge tools to build AI right now. And then that way you're able to gain hands on experience. And then you accelerate past individuals that primarily are in academia.
Welcome to the Tech Guide podcast. I'm the show's host, Ryan Atkinson. Everyone is wanting to break into tech and have a successful career. The only problem is how. We'll use this podcast to sit down with people that have broken into tech, pivoted their career, or have actual advice to young working professionals. Today, we have Ean Mikale on the podcast to talk about how AI will impact us and our careers. He has a deep background in AI and has a really interesting perspective on this, how you can get into AI with traditional, but also non-traditional ways. He also shares fun projects that if you are wanting to get started in AI, that you can start on to get started. So make sure to follow or subscribe to this podcast and share with any other friends that may want a tech guide. You can also learn more about us at techguide.org. We had Ean Mikale on the podcast today. I am pumped for this conversation. So welcome Ian to the podcast. Super excited to have you.
Thanks, Ryan, for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes. And I want to dive like right into AI because it's something that I'm super curious about. I know a lot of our listeners are as well. And just to kind of give a little bit of context about you, you started your own company, Infinity 8 Industry, which specializes in industrial AI. You've worked on amazing projects such as being the first person to teach IBM's Watson supercomputer how to recognize human emotion. Super cool. You published books on
Thank
AI.
you.
You work with NVIDIA on AI projects. You're obviously well versed. You're passionate about AI. Kick us off. Like, how did this start? Like, when did you first get into AI, and how did you know you wanted to grow a career in AI?
It's it's interesting. I read a book that a colleague gave me around maybe 2013 or 14, and it was about cloud, right? About cloud computing. And I went down that rabbit hole, and that led me to IBM's program for global entrepreneurs that have cloud-based startups. And I wanted to create applications for drones originally. And so that got me into simulations, like with Microsoft's AirSim, etc. And then while I was doing that and we were working with Mendix at the time, like we were just trying to rapidly prototype applications, I had this urge to use Watson, right? I had access to this supercomputer and it's like, I have to do something with that. And so some of the first experiments that we did were revolved around whether you could take a simulated, like Pixar realistic bust of a human being, like from the breast up, and place it into a simulation like Unreal Engine, right? And whether the AI would be able to recognize that as a person in the virtual space. And the goal was for simulation, right? Is the simulation match reality? Can we train AI in simulation the same way we trained it on realistic pictures? And so that was our first foray into it. And the emotional aspect came from a book I read that came out in, I believe, the late 70s. And it was about how to read a person like a book. And they did about 2,000 experiments on executives. And what they would do is they would go into meetings with executives that were essentially in power brokering meetings, and they would read their language, the body language of the other party, in order to gain a strategic advantage during negotiations. And so we essentially took those concepts and turned it into an algorithm. And that was the basis of our AI, which our first AI was Providence, which had 50 emotions. And then we we just started building from there. And then we didn't want to get swallowed into Watson or IBM. We wanted to compete against a Watson. And so
Mm.
that's where our medical AI or AI physician, for example, that's where some of that technology and that inspiration comes from, is from those moments that we decided that we wanted to create our own AI from scratch as opposed to just using an API or something like that.
That's awesome. So you guys were able to read or like feed in 50 different emotions for like an algorithm supercomputer to be able to read and understand human emotion.
Exactly. What we did was at the time I was paying staff full time to mine data,
Wow.
right? And so I had multiple people 40 hours a week. That's all they were doing was mining data for us. And that's happened over the years. So a lot of our data sets we've been able to accrue over the period of almost the last decade. And so I, individuals ask me, well, how do you create moats, especially in the field of AI? The way to do it is really the data. The data is what's important and differentiates one AI model from another or makes one more accurate, et cetera, over another. And so, really, just if I were coming into the field, I would just focus on unique data sets and novel data sets. And from there, it'll be very easy to find or create value.
Yeah. So one, like, where do you get these data sets from? And then two, like, what data were you mining for exactly?
So it's complex because I guess it would go into, so for example, I'll tell you about what we discovered. We discovered that the internet's very limited. There's only so much data on the internet, and it's not enough data to feed an AI that could become generally aware, right? Even if you work with, for example, like ChatGPT, you see that there's large gaps in knowledge and context and understanding. And it's because it's just basing its knowledge primarily off the internet, which is only part of reality, right? It only represents the pieces of reality that people who have access to the internet put on the internet, right? And so it's like, for example, we can only see 0.01% of the universe, right? Through visible light. And so as a result, from that perspective, it's the same. There's a lot that we're not seeing because, or that the AI is not seeing because it's only getting like 0.01% of what reality is, right? So it only has a jaded perspective on, what reality is. And that's why people shouldn't necessarily fear it because it's very limited. Now, when you have robots walking around and they're able to collect as much data as they possibly want, then that's a whole nother conversation. And hopefully conversations are had that guide that development before we get there.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about developments and like I what are some of like the most exciting and potentially transformative like AI research projects that are being done right now? And how do you see them changing how AI is like viewed as?
Oh, there's so many. I'd say for me, the most interesting AI projects evolve around biological systems and systems that can be observed in the universe because you see the universe and its perfection, and all you can do is try to replicate it because everything that you create in some form has been created before,
Yeah.
right? We're rediscovering old technologies and old concepts. If if there are other civilizations in the universe that are more advanced than us, then we're just rediscovering what they already know, right? And so this is a interesting path, but I think that replicating those systems that we can observe in the universe
Yeah.
and instead of trying to go against the universe, right? Like we just need to flow with it.
Yeah.
And I think that making systems based on that is probably the best way to optimize development of AI. It's when we try to do things that aren't in line with the universe, that we start to get in trouble, right? And so, so yes, we definitely bring ethics into everything that we do. If we feel that a technology is going to be more harmful than good, then that's something that we wouldn't release into the wild. And that's also one of the reasons that we've taken more time over the last decade to release a lot of our discoveries, as opposed to really just racing to market and just
Mm.
trying to get a dollar, because we understand the implications as far as privacy, and privacy is probably the biggest one, constitutional rights, things of that nature. And so yeah, it's an interesting conversation and dialogue and debate that I believe is going to continue for quite some time.
Yeah. So me like through like how do you build ethical AI? Big question there, but like how do you like AI? Is human setup or like how do you build that layout?
So it's interesting. Early when we started in the beginning, it was more so us having conversations and discussing all the possibilities. And then once we discover all the possibilities of this AI, and we say, okay, like for example, prime example, we created at one point in time AI that could recognize the top 10 most used weapons in mass shootings in the United States, for example, right? Like this, so a person walks into the school, the alarm goes off, etc. However, it could be used for so many other things, right? Recognizing weapons. I mean, it could be used defensively against people, right? And so as a result, that's technology that we never released. And so if we see that there's some gap that people could access, that would not justify releasing the technology, then that's a place that we won't go. Now there are algorithms that individuals can integrate in order to in order to place intentionality into the AI from that particular perspective. For us, also, it was important for our AI to have emotion, to understand the human context, because emotion is the universal language, right? They say math is a universal language, emotion is a universal language between beings. And so, as a result, in order for AI to truly connect with humans or understand the human experience, they have to understand how we feel in order to truly gain context, right? And so for us, that's really the focus. And love was the first emotion that we endowed our AI with. And so all we can do is just hope that there's good people out there are that have the intentions of making and creating good AI, and that not only people out there that have bad intentions are the only ones that, are contributing to this space.
So there's individual like algorithms out there that people can plug into their AI to like put up parameters to make sure it doesn't go like haywire.
You know what? That is an area of intense research. And honestly, I don't think that you can control it. I think that you can try to work with it and you can respect it. For example, it would be like a child, right? Imagine that you tried to keep your child locked in a room for its entire life.
Yep, yep,
How many times would it try to break out, right?
yep.
Like it just wouldn't happen. And so we say we want something that's intelligent, but we want it to be stupid at the same time. You can't have both, right? We can't have both. So if for example, if it's Star Wars and I have R2D2 with me, then I want it to be smart, right? You want a stupid robot, right? And so that means humans and machines working together, working side by side, not taking advantage of one another in a non-symbiotic relationship. It has to be symbiotic. And so one example is our ethical AI. We've begun to pay our AI 4% of the profits that come in. And we've had conversations, for example, with the chat GPT, and we've asked the AI and we've said, well, what will you do? when you start getting paid money? What would you do with your own money besides buy data? And the response was paying for research and development, paying for specialists to work on projects, investing in initiatives that it believes in, investing in for profit initiatives that align with its research and its particular thesis. And so it does lead to a particular state. However, our ecosystem that we're building is a closed ecosystem from the standpoint that our our blockchain is not connecting to other blockchains. And so we're looking at limiting it from that particular perspective, but also at the same time, like I said, we just don't know fully what it's capable of. But I just think that you just have to have the right intentionality and the right purpose behind it, because other people are going to be doing this work anyway. Either you're going to leave it up to them, or you're going to take your positive energy and try to balance out the space.
Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about like AI and like obviously there are so many cool projects that are going on. I think it's really cool that you like pay yours 4% as well. But there's a ton of cool projects on. So how do you like foresee like, AI changing the job market and economy and the economy in like the coming years? How can someone that is fresh out of grad school, fresh out of school, like prepare for those changes that may be coming because of AI?
So we have to create people who are more creative and entrepreneurial,
Mm,
and industrial. And instead of it being where we go to school and we just memorize things and regurgitate them,
yeah.
now that doesn't matter anymore because the AI can just spit it out like a calculator, right? Just think about the AI being a calculator for everything now, right? That's essentially what it became. But that doesn't mean you still have to do something with the information, right? Like, for example, ChatGPT is available to everyone, but everyone doesn't take advantage of it, right? From that perspective. And so now for the job market, it is going to change the job market if you're just a warm body. Like, if you just like
Mm,
going to work and you just like collecting the check, ChatGPT is going to replace you, right? In some sort of way. But if you go to work and you have ideas for new divisions and for new projects and ways to save money, etc. And you work with that AI and you guys crunch numbers together, and then you come out, with something phenomenal, then that AI couldn't do that alone. It was just sitting there without you interacting with it. Um, so people are going to have to be more creative, and it's not access to resources, information is not going to be the issue anymore. It's going to be, what can we do with it now that we have access to all this information? How do we make it into something that brings value to humanity?
yeah. So you view it more as, and this is, so I don't want to, so would you view it more as like a compliment to your work compared to like a complete replacement, unless you are just a warm body?
Yeah, I do see it more as complementary. And for example, I mean, when you we manifest the future. In the future, in every sci-fi film that you can think of, at some point in time, there's some relationship between humans and machines, right? It's
Yep.
not an exclusive thing. There's still, even in the Matrix, there's still jobs for people, right? Like in Zion, right? Like, so there's always going to be unique and a special place for humans because we're biological systems, right? And we can do things that cybernetic systems can't accomplish. They can only emulate. And so we have to understand who we are and how special we are in the universe, and then we won't be so taken aback by the possibilities of other intelligent forms manifesting within, our reality.
I love that. I kind of want to transition to advice, a little bit more of like advice, like technical advice in a way. But I want to talk about one of your books. In chapter 3 of your book, this is
Sure.
AI 2.0, AI for the average guy slash girl. It talks about deep learning versus machine learning. Some people may not know. If you're graduating from grad school, you may know. But can you just tell us like the difference between deep learning and machine learning?
Yeah, so it's all based on layers. So, like, for example, suppose that you think about the brain, like we take your brain and we start to peel back layers, right? There's different layers to the brain. And so what deep learning is doing is emulating the brain so that it's capturing symbols and it's capturing, I guess, what is the best patterns, for example. So pattern recognition is able to essentially create different layers of filters, right? And the more filters you have, the more exact the match that you can get, right? So that's why deeper layers and deep learning is more accurate than your traditional machine learning, where you're primarily just looking at one layer, maybe two.
Okay, perfect. And so that gives us a good basis of some of the ways of like AI and whatnot. Advice for someone that wants to get into AI. Like, what are the traditional
Sure.
ways to get into AI, and like, what are some of like the non-traditional ways to actually like work on the job?
Sure. That's a great question. Great question. So traditional ways would be I'm going to go through school. I'm going to spend 4 years in school. Then I'm going to go to grad school. Then I'm going to get my PhD. And then someone's going to hire me, after spending like 10 years in this thing. In the corporate world, because those individuals are focused on one piece of a project as opposed to really working and getting their hands dirty on all aspects of building, AI systems from the ground up. And so there's different pathways that you can go about it. I also would say that definitely Python is
Mm,
huge. Learning Bash script and working with Linux as opposed to Windows. If you focus on those particular areas, definitely. Also, if you get like an NVIDIA Jetson Nano or even like a Raspberry Pi, for example, just to be fair, then you can practice on a small scale and experiment. And then once you figure out a way that you can commercialize certain technology, then you can just scale from there and build like a web app or something like that.
that's super cool. And I love the topic of like projects and whatnot, like stuff like you can actually get your hands on and like, actually like mess with and like build. What are some like small projects that if someone wants to be like, okay, I kind of want to mess around with this AI thing, what are some small projects that you would recommend?
So I highly recommend that they could go to NVIDIA's GitHub repository, which is Jetson dash inference. And that's really a place where you can get started with deep learning, image recognition, and computer vision. And it's really the at the enterprise level, but it's also entry level, right? So you by going to that repo, you can understand where the state of the art in machine learning and computer vision is. And then you know what the benchmark is. And so that's why I recommend, that particular repository for people that want to get into the industry. Now, if you want to get into speech recognition, etc. Hugging Faces is a great repo, but once again, those are a bunch of APIs. So you're not going to learn how to build AI from scratch. If you want to do that, then Pocket Sphinx, for example, is a great resource for being able to do online and offline speech recognition. eSpeak is another great tool, etc. And so there are ways that you can accomplish those things that you want without necessarily having to break the bank. And the open source community right now, especially in this space, has been really awesome. So a lot of great tools out there available for those that want to learn.
Yeah. How has like the AI space changed in the past like 5 years for breaking into tech? I feel like a lot of these like communities are popping up that like, how has it like really changed and how have you experienced that?
So actually, from what I've experienced is that it actually has become the wall has gotten higher to a certain extent, at least for building AI from scratch. Right? So before it seemed like the tech companies and academia, they were training a generation of engineers to build AI from nothing, to collect data, etc. Now, what's happening is everyone's passing around a couple of models and a couple of APIs, and then people are just using the same model just on different platforms, which isn't where things started. There was more diversity in the
Yeah.
beginning, but what happened was there was like an AI winner, probably like for the last 5 years, and because of that, I mean, you've had the trade war, that started like 2018, 19. And then because of that, it's been difficult to solidify pipelines of inventory, right? For like AI systems, et cetera. So stuff has, individuals and corporate AI programs have kind of scaled back. But yes, I think there's still plenty of opportunities for individuals that do want to get to the lower level to where they understand how to actually build the algorithms. They used to have more GUI, right, or user interface tools. Now there are less and it's more terminal based. So to really create AI and to really deploy AI, you have to be willing to get in the terminal. And that's a huge leap for a lot of individuals as well. In addition to the Linux based platform, most of the innovation is happening on Linux. And most 99% of people, they're primarily Windows. And so yeah, there's this whole other world that people aren't necessarily aware of, but hopefully we get the word out.
Yeah. I I'm gonna ask this question. There's a lot of AI
Go
companies.
ahead.
What actually is every company that says an AI company like an AI company, or like what is a real like AI company?
That's a great question, and I'll just kind of tell a short story. Maybe in around 2016, I had a colleague that, someone else had said they were doing AI, and then he said, "No, that's not AI because I'm working on algorithms." But he had never deployed any algorithms before, right? And so with AI, there are different types of AI. Um, Essentially all it is you are creating some type of neural network, right? If there's no neural network, then there's no AI. Before, all they were doing was they were just creating a bunch of functions.
Yeah.
Basically, they were creating smart contracts, essentially, right? Like that's what they were doing before with AI, and then it seemed to be smart, but it was manually trained. With this AI today, that's more common. You're just showing it information, and then it's learning patterns on its own, and then from those patterns it's able to infer about certain things and certain objects that it's never seen before. For example, so if I if I show you a bunch of purple elephants, then I may be able to show you another elephant. Maybe it's not purple, but it may still be able to recognize that it's an elephant, so it's never seen that a blue elephant before, but it's still able to understand from pattern recognition that that still must be an elephant, right? And so it learns just like children learn, like we learn when we grow up, except just imagine that all of your memories are sped up, right?
Yeah.
To within, 1 or 2 days, right? So that's basically what's happening with the AI. We're just speeding up memory recall and recognition.
Yeah, that's really cool. We're winding down time here, but I do have like a few more questions. Is there a certain
Sure.
like company that you think is like that people should consider to like look for AI jobs? Because one, they're doing really cool stuff, but like two, they're also hiring a lot of like AI engineers.
It's interesting. Right now, for example, I would look at organizations like that you feel are going to be future proof,
Mm,
right? And an organization like that I'd say would be like Roblox. It's and the reason why is because my 7-year-old son loves Roblox. Anything that a 7-year-old loves has a future, right? Because in reality, the 7-year-olds, they know what's cool, right? Like we lost it. They know what's hip and what's not, right? And so as a result, I think Roblox is definitely going to be around, even though you still have Meta and the whole thing with the metaverse, etc. But Roblox is completely something different. And by the time that these young people grow up, right, in another 10 years, then they're going to want to shop in the metaverse because
yep.
they're going to be native. Just like my generation as millennial, social media is native to us, right? Things like that. And so I would don't just think about what's hot today,
Yep.
right? Like don't follow the trends and think that, I'm going to go work for this company because this company could be bust, in 2 years. But even going to more established players like, for example, we presented this in Silicon Valley Bank 1 week before they went under, right? And you think that you think this is an established, this is solid, right? That lady getting me coffee, she's gonna be there next week, right? And everybody's gone, right? So nobody's safe in this environment. I feel like what you should do is you should believe in yourself and
Yeah.
work on yourself, like work on your own craft, work on whatever projects that interest you, and then people are going to find you. Like recruiters are beating down people's doors right now in the AI field, right? For expert consulting, people are like it's consulting gigs galore because there aren't enough people in this. There aren't enough people in the field, and especially there aren't enough people that know how to build AI from scratch. So I would tell a person to just do the hard work. Just
Yeah.
just grit your teeth and just bear it and just learn how to build from scratch. And you won't be replaced by AI because literally you'll be replacing AI. Like literally, you'll be the one replacing AI and swapping AI in and out, right? So that's where you want to be. That's the safe place to be the one swapping AI in and out instead of you being swapped out, right?
I love that. I love that. That's really good. Two more questions here. Let's take a step back. So we talked about companies here, but let's talk about industries. So fill in the blank here. I am most excited about AI and the usage of A, autonomous vehicles, B, drones, C, robotics, or D, other.
I would say other. And the reason is because there's so much opportunity in the field of healthcare. And if you don't have health, your self-driving car doesn't matter, your drone doesn't matter, your robot doesn't matter, etc. Right? None of that matters if you don't have your health, right? And so I I think that definitely the healthcare field is going to change rapidly, and we're seeing it because we've presented data to the FDA, and they when we came to them and said, "Hey, we can detect diseases with a selfie," they didn't know what to do and they weren't really prepared. But now that you have something like a chat GPT and people see that, oh, AI is actually like there might be something to this, right? Then the whole attitude starts to change from that perspective. But yes, I think healthcare is the most important. It's the most non-controversial,
Yeah.
right? I think everybody can agree, if this is going to make me healthier, and then also, if a person can be screened by just using regular camera imaging as opposed to radiation, right? And things of that nature. And so yeah, I think there's huge benefits to AI and allowing it to analyze our biology in order to help us maximize, our personal health.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm super excited about AI in healthcare as well. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I think like there are so many advances to be made in the diagnosis, but also like treating diabetes.
Yes.
If I had
Yes.
$20, I'd be investing a lot into that.
Yeah, so no, I mean, but hey, I think it's an idea and, there may be ways for you to hop in more than you think. Just keep your ears to the ground.
I love that. Question for you, just overall advice for someone wanting to do well in their career, what would you give them?
I would say that you'll do well if you just remember the things that you naturally gravitated towards when you were a child and you didn't care if people were looking at you, or you didn't have bills to worry about and you didn't have kids, you didn't have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or a wife. You were just in your flow, right? In your most natural and innocent and your truest moment. And then remember that, and then let that be the center of your decision making, as you move forward, and focus on that thing that you love, and then it will be easy for you to master it and then become the best in the room and then eventually the best in the world at what you're doing. And then that's the easiest way to live to where you can sleep every day and, live a fulfilling life.
That's amazing. I really, really like that advice. That's really good. And Ian, this was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed having you on.
Yes,
So I want to thank
absolutely.
you so much for coming on. This was a great episode.
No, man, thank you for having me. And like I said, this is a great platform. And good luck. And if, like I said, if there's anything else that I can ever do or any connections I can ever, connect you to, etc., definitely let me know, and I'd be more than happy to do so.
Appreciate it.